Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to be guiding you through this material today. We are not just going to be looking at a simple list of ancient artifacts. Instead, we're embarking on a real cinematic journey into how early humans mastered the most fundamental elements around them, earth, water, and fire, to literally build the foundations of civilization. We're going to look really closely at the megalithic pottery of Sri Lanka, acting as cultural historians to decode exactly what these vessels tell us about ancient engineering, philosophy, and human ingenuity. So, let's dive right in. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll be tracing the journey of clay by looking at the megalithic potter's craft, the black and red mystery, firing the clay, vessels of the living, urns for the afterlife, and finally, symbols and early scripts. I want to hook you immediately with this thought. Back in 1885, a 19th century archaeologist named H. Parker was excavating these sites. And even back then, he was struck by a pretty profound realization. He saw that these ancient people weren't just primitive mud shapers, they were highly advanced engineers of their time. The earthenware they produced millennia ago possessed an excellent quality that still commands absolute respect today.
Chapter 1: The Megalithic Potter's Craft, Earth, Water, and the Wheel.
Now, this evolution represents a massive leap in technological mastery. Early pottery from the Pomparippu site was coarse, gritty, and unburnished, basically primitive bowls molded by hand or on a very slow turntable. But over time, as we see in later wares from Anuradhapura or South India, there's this incredible shift. We start seeing highly polished, technically superior vessels shaped with absolute precision on a fast wheel. It's literally the timeline of human engineering unfolding. Let's ground this data in physical reality for a second. Imagine the sensory experience of this craft. The potters sourced well-levigated, finely purified clay right from their local environment. They mixed this paste sparingly with tempering materials, things like sand, quartz, or crushed stone, just to give it strength. Early on, these were formed by hand, free from any painted decorations, and finished with incredibly tactile, simple impressions. Think of the press of a rough cord or a bipinnate, fern-like leaf pressed right into the wet clay. It was a deeply physical, grounded process. Chapter 2: The Black and Red Mystery, the hallmark of a culture. So, the crucial point here is defining exactly what we mean. Black and red ware is a highly specialized ceramic. The interior and the rim of the pot are a deep, glossy black, while the exterior body is a rich red. And here's the kicker. This wasn't painted on. As we'll see in a minute, it was the result of highly specific, intentionally manipulated firing conditions. When archaeologists dig this up, they know exactly what cultural era they are standing in. And this technique definitely didn't happen in a vacuum. The global reach is just staggering. A similar black-topped ware appears as far back as 4000 BC in ancient Egypt. We see its origins in Indian Chalcolithic sites around 2500 BC, moving into the megalithic phase in places like Brahmagiri by 800 BC, and then continuing right down to the 1st century AD. This specific style is part of a massive shared human timeline of technological exchange.
Chapter 3: Firing the Clay, the Transformation by Fire.
It is so fascinating watching modern minds try to reverse engineer ancient genius. You've got Wheeler, who proposed inverted firing, suggesting pots were placed upside down in combustible material. Then Lucas and Majumdar argued for double firing, meaning two entirely distinct operations, or burying rims in sawdust to induce dense smoke. But as the source material points out, these methods are either flawed in producing the exact exterior color patterns, or they're just way too time-consuming for mass production, which leads us to Srivastava's theory. Srivastava's method is honestly a masterclass in ancient smart decision-making. The process goes like this. First, you shape the pot. Second, you pre-apply a carbonaceous or carbon-rich substance specifically to the interior and the rim. Third, you fire it all at once in a kiln. During firing, the treated parts reduce and turn black, while the exposed lower exterior oxidizes and turns red. It's practical, it requires way less time and expenditure, and it perfectly explains the mass production of these beautiful vessels. Chapter 4: Vessels of the Living, Daily Life in Clay. Remember, these weren't just museum pieces. They were the Tupperware, the fine china, and the cooking pans of antiquity. There's an incredible variety of typologies here. They had kinums and mykinums, hemispherical bowls for eating. Carinated dishes, meaning they had a distinct ridge or angle, with slightly sagging bases for serving. Squat, wide-mouthed pots perfectly engineered for cooking over a hearth. They even crafted complex hollow stands to elevate other vessels, and elegant pointed finials.
It paints such a vivid, dynamic picture of ancient dining and daily life.
Oh, and I absolutely love this detail. To get that stunning, glossy finish on their best pieces, some archaeologists believe they rubbed the unbaked clay with the mucilaginous, sticky juice of the toothy plant before firing. It's a brilliant piece of ancient botanical chemistry, showcasing just how resourceful these makers were with their natural environment. But here is where we see a profound dichotomy in their work. The habitation pottery, the items from daily life we just discussed, were often fine, well-baked, wheel-thrown, and fired at temperatures high enough to give the clay a literal metallic ringing sound when you tapped it. But the burial pottery, the vessels dedicated to the dead, were surprisingly simple, largely unpolished, and intensely coarse. Which brings us to Chapter 5, Urns for the Afterlife, Returning to the Earth. The construction of these burial urns was highly purposeful. They were intentionally underfired. The potters took coarse, gritty clay and heavily mixed it with organic material like hay or chaff from their harvests. They shaped them into massive vessels with distinct elongated bodies and pointed bottoms, usually capped with basin-shaped lids. Every microdetail, right down to the harvest chaff mixed into the mud, connects back to the macro story of their funerary rites and their deep connection to the agricultural earth. It represents a deeply meditative relationship. The potter took the raw earth, the very ground they walked and farmed on, and molded it by hand to embrace the dead. In doing so, they created an enduring vessel of earth that would cradle human remains and outlast its creators by thousands of years. It's the ultimate cycle of life, death, and returning right back to the soil. Finally, Chapter 6, Symbols and Early Scripts, the dawn of written communication. On the shoulders of many of these ancient vessels, archaeologists find mysterious scratches and symbols, ancient graffiti, and there is intense scholarly debate over what they actually mean. Yazdani argued they were actual written characters expressing ideas, kind of like Egyptian scripts. Lal suggested they were practical, a potter's pre-firing mark or maybe an owner's post-firing signature. Mahalingam took a completely different route, arguing they were totemistic symbols representing animals, plants, or the sun and moon, reflecting early socio-religious ideas. So, I've got a question for you to think about. When an ancient person took a tool and scratched a symbol into the hardened clay of a black and red ware pot, what were they really doing? Were they just claiming ownership of their grain? Were they etching a prayer to a nature totem? Or were they taking the very first steps toward a shared written language? Well, the data gives us an incredible takeaway here. According to Law Study, 83% of the symbols found in the much older Harappan Chalcolithic culture actually continue down into this megalithic time period. These aren't just random scratches. They represent an evolutionary bridge. It's a continuous line of human thought, culminating in the incredible fact that the very first surviving traces of the formal early Brahmi script are found inscribed directly onto this exact pottery. Which leaves us with this final thought. When we examine these vessels, from the coarse urns of Pomparippu to the gleaming black and red dishes of Anuradhapura, we aren't just looking at ancient Tupperware. We're looking at the mastery of chemistry, the philosophy of life and death, and the very foundations of human written history, all baked right into the earth. It completely reframes how we view human progress, doesn't it? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this sparked your curiosity to dig even deeper.